right, and welcome to the next episode of FinOps Friday. Today I'm here with our guest Alee Whitman, and today we are going to put the fun into FunOps. That is a wee little joke for our New Zealand audience. Otherwise, you're probably looking at me with strange faces. Alee, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? Where have you come from? What's your experience been?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on. Hi, everyone. My name's Allie, and my background is a little bit different. I actually started in consulting, wanting to do nothing with the cloud, and got an opportunity to go on to a global media and entertainment company's um, cloud project and was able to start from scratch and build up their whole FinOps program. I was able to come in and basically just define what does cost optimization look like for this customer, and in doing so found out I really enjoyed working this work. The numbers, being able to get into the data and help our teams with all the different levers that they have in optimization and how they can run efficiently. I wanted to keep doing it full time. So I transitioned over to AWS, where I was a part of a team called Optics, and our team's whole role was to help AWS's largest customers identify ways to run more efficiently and make sure that they are maximizing their benefit on the cloud. I'm actually going back to the customer world now, though, too. So, in between jobs right now. So, technically, right now, I am in peer training mode. I've been playing with a lot of trainings that I've been wanting to do, but just didn't had time for. And so, it's been a fun time right now.
Yeah, excited to get back into the trenches from the customer side, from the vendor side.
Oh yes, I'm a little bit scared. I'm going to be a little rusty since it's been a couple years, but I am so excited to see, what it was like to be the people that I was working directly with, actually be back in their shoes, understand now knowing what I know from being on, the AWS side to now going back to the customer. How could I, better connect the dots or better leverage resources I didn't know existed before?
And also, like, the constraints that you operate. That was one thing I always struggled with from a vendor. Just go and get this done. You're really not aware of the constraints that exist within the customers at all times within their organization, or the blockers that they've got as well.
Yes, it's and exactly that. So, a lot of times we'll be saying take action on this optimization. It's low hanging fruit. But what really is low hanging fruit? It is to us maybe, but it might not be to the customer and how they're thinking about it or how that team specifically thinks about it. So being able to really hone in on how do I connect optimization more to engineers and make it a part of their day to day rather than something that we come in as, hey, this low hanging fruit, clean it up. How do we start with that?
Yeah. And one quick question, you mentioned, you went from consulting and sort of found your way into the FinOps and the cloud world. What was the skill set that you have? Why were you identified, or what was it that made you make that jump and connect you to the cloud and FinOps?
I think one of the things about me is I love to really dive in and find a point of reference. My background's in finance, and one of the things with the cloud is you kind of have to understand your spend first to really know where you have the opportunities to optimize. And so I was able to really use that to my advantage and just my ability to kind of want to dive in deeper and figure out more within what this puzzle we call the cloud is.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right, so on to our topic. We're here to talk about gamification. It sounds fun enough, it's got the word game in it. Is it really fun, or are you just trying to like dress up the vegetables to make sure that the kids eat them? Or is it, a really completely unique approach to solving a problem? Can you explain for us, exactly what gamification actually is?
Yeah, so gamification is actually just essentially applying all the fun and engaging elements that you find in a typical game to a real world or productive activity. So think about, when you were a kid. When you were a kid, you gamified, or teachers would gamify a lot of things in school. You had sticker charts, you had different ways to basically hone in on the key human drivers that make a person want to participate in and really give it their all, and think about it more as something that they want to do rather than something that's forced upon them. Yes, they're still eating those vegetables, but they're doing it in a way that it's actually something that's resonating with them. It's hitting the key factors that they're interested in. And I like to kind of think about it as like an Apple Watch. Your Apple Watch is a day-to-day form of gamification. My fiance wears his, and he talks about closing his rings all the time. It's essentially their sticker chart. It's gamifying day-to-day activity to get adults to move. Just like with FinOps, when you gamify FinOps, you're just gamifying the optimization or the art of kind of learning the best practices of how to run efficiently on the cloud. And so regardless these teams should be thinking about this, we might as well make it fun for them too.
So it's not just sort of like dressing it up and hiding it. It is actually adding specific elements so that it is actually a game. If you look at the task, it now has all the elements that would actually make it an enjoyable game sort of experience. It's not just sort of a bait and switch type of thing or disguising it.
Exactly. And so you know it's still there, but it's now something that it's there in a different way that you want to work with it. You're now perceiving it as something that's fun rather than something being forced upon you.
Gotcha. And what's the actual outcome of gamification? Is it to make something fun in education, or is it to make sure that you can achieve the task outcome? What would you say is the outcome of gamifying it?
I think, there's different outcomes. An outcome might not actually be a savings opportunity. It could be something as simple as education or breaking down the barriers so it's easier for folks to optimize or run efficiently in their day to day. So I think the actual outcome is just getting awareness to the teams in a way that it's no longer an ad hoc, I need to do optimization on the side. It's bringing optimization to them in a way that resonates and something that they can take forward. Because regardless, I think like it or not, people are going to have to optimize at some point in time, even if it hasn't come to them just yet. We might as well, get the outcome early on where gamification is enjoyable and it's something that people actually look forward to and get a little bit more innovative around.
And does it always make something fun and enjoyable, or does it make something that's horrible less horrible? Yeah, does it make it enjoyable, or does it just trigger something else that you actually want to get it done? There's more of a desire versus I'm not getting enjoyment, but I really want to solve this problem type of thing.
I think there's going to be different people, and again, tapping into how it resonates with your teams, keeping an open feedback loop because what resonates with someone might not resonate with another person, and so making sure that you know how your teams work best, but also how do you appeal or adapt to your team's changing needs. And so in terms of that, there's going to be people who, going to give a shout out to my old teammate Steph. You play a game with Steph, Steph's going to win, and you want to be on Steph's team. No matter what the game is, she is going to get it done and she is going to blow everyone out of the water. And it could be any topic. And she's driven by that kind of competition factor, wanting to really be her biggest competitor. And she's the person that's really driving it forward, regardless of the topic. There's going to be people, though, that need it to be something a little bit more incentivized to them. And that's kind of where, the prizes, the um, recognition, the different areas that come with gamification bring those people into the play because they might be ones that might not have taken that step without the gamification aspect.
Yeah, gotcha. So it actually it's not making it fun, but it actually brings more people and resources involved as well.
Yes, and I think the key piece of this is like less is more. Not everything should be gamified. If you gamified every single day of your work, it would become unbearable. It would become a nuisance. It would just become over gamified. You really want to hone in and like what you are gamifying and what the kind of defined gamification type of event or optimization is. If it's too broad or too frequent, um, it's going to be exhausting for teams and they're going to learn to resent it rather than having it be an enjoyable time.
Gotcha. When you speak to anyone that works at a chocolate company, yeah, I don't really eat that much chocolate. Like, yeah, how can you not? Um, okay, so how do you make it actual? How do you make gamification successful? At some point, the kid's gonna realize I'm being snuck vegetables here. How do you make sure that it stays a game? And you sort of touched on it there. Less is more. But how do you make sure that it does stay a game and it doesn't start to become a chore when you use this tool? How do you keep it enjoyable?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's still going to be the same type of outcome where they're actually taking action of an optimization like with a Brussels sprout. It's just in a way that it's more enjoyable. So think about if you add bacon to Brussels sprouts. Just a simple change makes them way more appealing to a lot of folks. I know I'm one of those people. Um, and it's kind of like that with gamification. You really just got to hone in on something very small and minor that's going to resonate with your whole teams. And so, going back to that less is more, maybe having it be a few different Maybe it's a quarterly gamification, or you have it more focused on kind of a team or a topic, or just something that really puts it to a defined start and end. And it's not always going to be successful from the start. And I think that's where that feedback loop I mentioned a little bit earlier comes into play. You really need to learn from your teams and your past gamifications. There's no gamification event if your teams aren't enjoying it, and if you're not taking the learnings that you have from working with them to heart and putting it into practice. And so always room for improvement, always room to adjust and adapt, and always room to pivot if you find the way you're gamifying it isn't working. So maybe you did a day event. I've actually had this happen with a customer. They recognized that a day event wasn't working for them. They couldn't get their team to prioritize a full day because it was taking them away from all their activities. There'd be people out. They also didn't feel like they learned enough of the concepts to be able to apply it. And so that team, recognized it, and we were able to adapt and create an event that actually worked for them and fit their team's needs. So I think, going back to what you can kind of take away from how do you make it successful, it's listening to the needs of your teams and really making sure that you are adjusting it to fit where their priorities lie and how they run their workloads in their day to day.
Gotcha. And who needs to be involved with the activities, from start to finish completion? Whether or not they're actually doing the activities, or whether or not they're giving some weight to it. Who needs to be at the table?
Yeah, I say you never want to block people from coming to the table. The first gamification event is always going to be a party. And by that, I mean people who really don't need to be there are going to come. And that's okay. They might they're going to get something out of it. They are not probably going to be a key stakeholder in taking the action or some of the content that's tailored to them. But it's good to get them involved. It's good to have them be able to have some of the learnings that come out of it. It's also
Are
interesting.
those
Oh, go
are
ahead.
those people taking part, or they're sort of observing? Hey, I've heard about this cloud thing. It's not my thing, but I'm looking in. Or they're people that are coming along. This is my job, but I'm sort of half interested.
Um, I'd say both. I'd say you'll get people who are cautiously optimistic the first time, where they might not be fully participating in it, or their team might not be in it just yet, but they want to come be kind of on the sidelines to see, is this something that, we want to do? We're not really sold yet, kind of sell us on it. Then there's going to be those people that, you know, um, might not have a stake in the type of event that it's the type of gamification event. At the end of the day, it could be a person who's strictly finance. They do have a stake in it, but the event might be for engineering. And it might be a very, hands-on type of event where we're going into a concept that, less on the finance side, it's more on teaching the concepts from an engineering perspective. They still can learn something from sitting in. And what we've kind of found is like, how can you kind of bring bits and pieces into it that will kind of help resonate with them. So, in the first time we'll see kind of who's all has interest, the different types of teams and stakeholders there, and then what we can do is adapt and say, hey, it looks like we have a lot of folks who are from X, Y, and Z type of role or have these responsibilities. We can have someone kind of break out with them separately and walk them through how to connect it to what the teams are doing because they're not really participating in the game, but they're able to learn from it and take advantage of, how do I talk to my teams about what they're doing and learning in this game?
I'll talk about well, in terms of, so the first sort of couple of sessions of gamification are really about learning the art of gamification and learning the art of gamification in your company. And then after you've worked that out, it then becomes more about actually the task at hand. Is that sort of a natural evolution progression?
I'd say it is. I will say that, you could have a successful event just from the get-go, like, being at AWS and being able to work with a bunch of different customers on these type of events. You start to learn and recognize just from, what you know about your customers or what you know about the teams you're working with, what might work better. But you never really know until you get in there and see how it's going. So you can do all the planning, you can do all the prep, but you can't predict that it's going to be a perfect event. And I don't think you'll ever have a perfect event. There's always something to learn. But it does sometimes take, a recognition from the first event of like, what could we have done differently to make this more impactful? And you can learn that during the event and take that into account and adjust. And so it can happen in real time too.
Gotcha. And is there anyone, just sort of going back to the previous point, who's involved? Is there anyone specifically you don't involve? Is it that grumbly person that's stuck in the teenage that loves the service? Do you avoid bringing them in, or do you sort of force them in at risk of them disrupting the event? Is there anyone that you don't want at the event?
I'd say it's not a specific role. It's going to be someone who's, bringing down the morale of the team. I know a lot of people, and might argue with this, a lot of people will bring optimization in terms of waste. We don't want to talk about it in terms of waste during these events. We want to talk about it as, an opportunity, and make it positive. So if people are coming in and having a negative perspective on what's going on, or, um, you know, taking away from the work that the team are doing, and making it more of a stressful environment for them, and actually adding to the level of work, or, you know, asking the question of like, why didn't you do this sooner? There's a lot of reasons why they might have not done it sooner. And so those are the people that we probably don't want in the event. And what we typically try and do is, have a counterpart on the customer side or the team side, depending on what your role is, that is able to help kind of set expectations with that person, and let them know, hey, it's all of us or nothing. You got to be here. You got to participate. If you're going to do that, you need to be supportive of your team, or else we're not going to get anywhere.
Gotcha. Yeah, nice, nice. All right, we'll take a quick break here, and it is time to do our speed round questions. This is where we ask our guest a few little questions to get to know a little bit more about them. Ali, are you ready?
I am ready.
Alrighty, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Heck no.
Cat person or a dog person?
Dog for sure.
Red or white wine?
Red wine.
Beer or spirits?
Spirits.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Beg for forgiveness, probably.
Favorite movie, director, producer, genre?
This one's easy. Coach Carter.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Your favorite TV series?
Entourage.
Your favorite song, musician, genre?
Probably Chris Stapleton.
Your favorite food, type of food?
Anything Italian.
When you holiday, do you prefer activities or relax and do nothing?
Anything near the beach.
Are you doing activities, water sports, or are you just lying down doing nothing?
Probably in the water, so activities.
Buildings and architecture or nature?
I'd probably say buildings and architecture, even though I'm going to say the beach for the other one. I know they clash, but I like looking at houses.
Beach next to a city with some expensive houses. Got it. What is your preferred superpower, supernatural ability?
I would say reading people's minds. I know that's creepy.
Very invasive, yes. Your favorite vacation location?
Lake Roosevelt.
Text or talk?
Talk.
Your childhood nickname?
Technically, Allie's my childhood nickname, so Alexis is actually my real name.
Your proudest moment?
Proudest moment was getting to meet my nephew for the first time.
Nice. All right, so you scored a 95 and a half. Chipped up on the pineapple, and it's not too bad.
Hey, okay, I'll take it. That would be an A.
Solid, rock solid, absolutely. All right, so back into the topic before we take a break for this half of the episode. So I'm sold. Gamification is something that's awesome. I really want to gamify some things. What are some sort of details when it comes around? And I sort of spoke about this briefly before in terms of the evolution, but how do you actually build capability and get better at it as an organization? Like, how is gamifying a core component of what you're able to do?
Yeah. So I think it's going to vary on what you're doing in the gamification event, and so I think when it comes into like gamification as a type of event, there's typically like two types of gamifications, or two brackets, I'd almost say. One is going to be a kind of a game day type of event. So if you've ever participated in a game day, they're typically a one-day event there where you're implementing like a real life scenario, but it's in a risk-free environment. You're not actually working in your own applications. It's more of a learning event. And that would be kind of one where I'd say those are ones where you're trying to teach a concept or you're really trying to educate folks on the different levers that they have to pull, but not do it in a way where it's going to actually impact their environment or actually be something that they are taking action on. The nice thing about these is you can kind of define the scope and the outline of it. So these are great for, educating people on, best practices or how to actually implement something, but in a way that it's very prescriptive and they can follow the steps through it. These are actually really great for the finance folks too as well, like a FinOps type of person. I think these are probably one of the ones I say, even if the topic is a little bit more technical than they're used to, I highly encourage they come and take part in these ones. A game day type of event where it's risk free, you're not actually taking action in environment, is one that they could do as well. And it's oh, are you?
Yeah. So, what is the thing? Just sort of like I think a lot of people might be aware of like a hack day, where you set up a pre-configured environment from from a security hack day. It's got some vulnerabilities, and people are trying to hack it, and people are trying to defend it. What is like a FinOps cost optimization, cloud financial management hack day, game day look like? Do you build a heap of stuff inefficiently, but then you got to wait a day for all the billing to happen? And then like how do you, what does a sort of a game day look like? Some sort of practical examples.
Yeah, so one could be, you have it pre-set up ahead of time. There's ways to provision an environment and get it set up. But actually, one of the ones that I'd say from a finance approach that I challenge everyone if you haven't done this yet is, a lot of the finance folks will use the console. They're more comfortable going in and taking action in the console or using the console and the UI for anything they're looking at. One of the easiest optimizations from like a way to kind of show how to do it from an AWS side is let's take it looking changing a volume and modernizing an EBS volume from GP2 to GP3. If you were to do that, a lot of times people go into the console and be like, okay, here's how I would go about doing it, or here's how I talk about doing it. But have they actually done it? And so can we show them how that they can, go through the steps of using infrastructure as code rather than going into the console to do it? And so maybe they use um, a lab that takes them through like Cloud9 with a CDK approach. I know I got a little bit into the terms there. Hopefully there will be a lab on one of these public soon so that you guys can try them out, or you can do a gamification event with it. But it actually now puts you into the shoes of not exactly what your engineering teams are doing, but at least a little bit more in an understanding of the approach that they take to implement these types of optimizations in their environments. And you're using a type of a pipeline approach rather than, you know, plug a chug away in the console.
Yeah, and the one aspect of FinOps is sort of doing the actual work of changing and optimize, but there's still many other components. The visibility, the accountability. Have you seen game days around that type of thing? Like, okay, let's create a dashboard. Or how do we get insights into this? A tagging schema. Probably not the most fun game day, but you're then getting input from everyone, and they feel as though it's part of them, and they're buying into that, which could be a valid strategy. The other aspects of like the non-technical components, have you seen game days around those?
Yes, definitely. And I'd say even if a game day isn't on one of those, we always like to have those be a part of it because you want to be able to track and recognize the savings or the efficiencies or what actually happened and took place and the impact of it. And so, regardless of the type of event, we can show the FinOps folks or the folks who need to track more of the visibility aspect of it how to gamify what their teams actually did into their own day to day. So, building a report around it. We have you could use a BI tool with any of the cloud providers' billing reports as just one of the most simple, basic ways to get started and gamifying how can you best show these opportunities. And let's take it a step further. Who can come up with the most innovative way to show how a team's trending, but also where their opportunities lie? Are you able to group and see your different teams or different areas based on what you know about them from working with them and hone in on where maybe a team's had a success and where you haven't seen a team move the needle and connect the dots to figure out what's going well with that team and bring it to the team that hasn't started. And so you can use the data from a visibility standpoint to start to figure out where your teams are succeeding and where you can, use those successes to teach others.
Gotcha. And you sort of spoke about it before as well. Less is more. You want to keep that novelty factor. You want to keep the real honest excitement and passion. how frequently do you do something like a game day or an event, or do you start to also sort of slowly add one or two gamification features in a regular job to sort of build out some of that as well?
Yes, so the other type of bracket we actually didn't touch on yet is you have the game day type of event, which is 1 to 2 days typically. But one of the ones that I actually found my customers liked a little bit more was an event that took place over the course of like a month or a couple weeks, or some even would extend it to a quarter and have the parties go around that quarter. I say a month is about the happy medium. Anything longer and it does get a little bit too long of a duration. But what this is actually letting them do is take an approach where they're actually working in their own environment. So with the game day, at the end of the game day, you've learned a concept or you've been able to complete a type of action or something, but you haven't actually realized savings in your own environment. Whereas the month long or a longer duration gives customers time and engineers time to assess the opportunity in their environment, test it out in a dev environment, not prod first, and then see if it's working and implement it across the board if it's something that fits their environments. It also gives them time to ask questions in between about, hey, I'm hitting, this type of blocker. What do you do for here? Or how would you approach it next? And so I found that those ones resonate a lot more, and they also get people a little bit more excited because they end the event with actual savings. These ones specifically can get really wide scope very quickly because everyone's saying, there's so many opportunities. Let's put all of these ones out. I say stick with a couple. Maybe you have it focused on compute and storage, and you have a couple key factors around compute and storage that, teams are focusing on, and then you always have like an innovation type of optimization where it is a free open one, but it's not one of the ones that are actively part of the event, and you can get an award for kind of the most creative optimization.
Gotcha. And I guess also getting multiple teams or a large number of people to be completely free for a day without distractions can be challenging. So a longer one, people can sort of slot in and do some time when they want.
Exactly. And a lot of times it's, you know, would you really feel comfortable taking action of something you just learned? You want to go back and assess it, really do your due diligence there. It's hard to say with confidence that, you know, on paper this looks good, but I need to double check that this actually is the right decision for, our workloads, our applications, and isn't going to impact our end business and actually cause more of a cost because we took action on this. And so I think that's really what the key is of the multi-day events. And you also learn a lot more about how teams take what they learn and apply it. And so those are some of the best learnings that you get out of it from, a leadership perspective of people taking part in the game, but also from, when I was on the AWS side, learning how the different teams hone in and take action after they hear and understand a concept, because that lets me help them in the future, but it also lets their broader team figure out what works well and what doesn't and get them more support in the way that they need it. So in a future optimization they can actually understand, hey, this is how the team digested it last time. Let's maybe take that approach again, and let's first actually show them the opportunity ahead of time before we even bring it into it. So maybe they start showing KPIs of what they're going to be doing in an event a couple months before, and just start getting people comfortable with it, because that was one of the problems that they faced. Maybe they didn't even know that the opportunity was there until the event came up.
Gotcha. And so you basically need to evolve your gamification capability like you evolve everything else. You learn, you get better, you take it to the next step, you add, you try different things all the way along the journey.
Yes, exactly. It's gamification, for the folks taking part in the event. It's a fun way for them to do something that they should be doing already, and it really does put the camaraderie into it of, hey, let's make this a fun and collaborative environment. But for the folks actually hosting it, it's a lot of planning and partnering.
Well, I was going to say the preparation. There is actually like the event itself is fun, but there is some serious work that needs to go into preparing, planning so that it does execute.
Exactly. And so that is probably, I'd say, the piece that, you know, behind the scenes is most important for a successful event. But we don't want to burden the people who are actually taking a part in the event with that. So we have, a counterpart on either the customer side or your partner side, or the different kind of key stakeholders that you would need for a successful event. And those are the folks that are really getting together and figuring out, how do we make this something that resonates, but it's actually something that is worth the team's time, and is going to give the effect and the impact that we need to really push forward and drive optimization.
And my easy answer to that is just to simply gamify the preparation for the gamification event. The preparation's going to be fun, simple, great solution.
I definitely, I'll also say the preparation sometimes will bring up gaps that folks didn't realize. So, a lot of times people will find a topic that they want to gamify, but they don't have the ability to give their teams the data on it yet. And that's probably one of the most interesting ones, is how do you balance that? Because now they're needing to gamify themselves too. And so we challenge them to kind of figure out how they can get their teams the information they need, and would show them how to do it, but in parallel be able to pull that first set for them, and get them started so the teams can do it in parallel to them learning as well.
Yeah, wow. Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right, we're going to take a quick break here for the first half of the episode. If you've got any questions or feedback for myself or for Alee, give us an email at feedback@finopsfridays.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also pop a comment below. Make sure you subscribe and like. So that's it for the first half. Join us again shortly for the second half of the show.